It was 105 degrees in Scottsdale. My shoes were practically melting into the asphalt. I had 3 heavy grocery bags cutting into my forearms and my screaming 2-year-old Seth clinging to my hip. Sweat stung my eyes, but I didn't blink. I couldn't. I was too busy watching my own silver SUV roll past me. My mother-in-law Heather was driving. My sister-in-law Tiffany was in the passenger seat. They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They just waved and kept driving my car, leaving me to rot in the desert heat. Before I tell you exactly who owns the luxury house they were driving back to, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I made it another block before my knees gave out. I sat on the curb, the asphalt, radiating heat through my jeans and tried to shield Seth from the sun with my body. My phone was dead. My water bottle was empty. I was 29 years old and I was sitting in the dirt like a discarded wrapper. A shadow fell over me. It wasn't a cloud. It was a lifted black Ford F-250 idling at the curb. The window rolled down and there was my father, Steve. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a storm front. He was a contractor who had built half the luxury homes in this valley. A man who spoke in blueprints and deadlines. He didn't ask why I was walking. He didn't ask where my husband was. He just put the truck in park, got out and lifted Seth from my arms. Get in, he said. His voice was low, vibrating with a frequency that usually meant someone on a job site was about to get fired. I climbed into the passenger seat, my hands shaking as I buckled Seth in. Dad, it's not a big deal. I lied, my throat dry. I wanted the exercise. He didn't look at me. He stared straight ahead, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Don't lie to me, Haley. I saw them pass you. I saw Heather driving your car. He pulled back onto the road, tires gripping the pavement with aggressive precision. We're going to the house. Do not speak. Just watch. The drive to the gated community usually took 10 minutes. Steve made it in 6. We pulled up to the house, a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa with a manicured lawn that Elijah was obsessed with. And there was my silver SUV parked in the center of the driveway. The trunk was open. Heather and Tiffany were unloading shopping bags, laughing as they pulled out garment bags and shoe boxes. Dad didn't park on the street. He pulled the truck directly across the bottom of the driveway, blocking them in. He cut the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, like the air before a lightning strike. We got out. Heather looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed. Steve, she called out, smoothing her silk blouse. You're blocking the driveway. Tiffany has to leave in an hour for showing. She's not going anywhere. Dad said, walking up the driveway. Give me the keys. Heather let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. Excuse me? We are borrowing it. Haley doesn't need a luxury SUV to drive to the park and change diapers. Tiffany is a realtor. She's building a future. Image matters. That was it. The logic that had ruled my life for 3 years. My existence was functional. Tiffany's was aspirational. Therefore, she deserved my things. The front door opened and Elijah stepped out. He was wearing his work from home polo shirt, looking irritated by the noise. He saw me red-faced and dusty standing next to my father. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't rush to take his son. He looked at the truck, blocking the driveway, and frowned. Steve, seriously? Elijah hissed, stepping closer. Keep your voice down. The HOA has strict rules about noise and commercial vehicles. You're going to get us fined. He was worried about a $50 fine. I was worried about heat stroke. Dad didn't even look at Elijah. He kept his eyes on Heather. He held out a hand. Palm up. The keys, or I take them. Heather scoffed, clutching her purse. You're being hysterical. We're family. We share. Dad stepped into her personal space. He was 6 feet 2 inches of concrete and rebar. I am not asking again. Heather froze. The smile dropped. She dug in too. Her purse, pulled out the fob and slapped it into his hand. Femi, take it. But you're so aggressive. No wonder. Haley is so high-strung. Dad tossed the keys to me. Get in your car. Haley, we're leaving. You can't just take her. Elijah shouted, finally finding his spine now that his mother was upset. She has responsibilities here. Dinner isn't even started. Dad stopped. He turned to look at Elijah, analyzing him like a load-bearing wall that was about to buckle. You better figure out how to use a stove, Elijah, because she's done cooking for you. I buckled Seth into my SUV. The leather was cool. The air conditioning was instant. I watched in the rear view mirror as Dad got back into his truck. Elijah was still standing in the driveway arguing with the air while Heather comforted Tiffany, who was pouting about her lost ride. They looked so small in the mirror, so petty. I put the car in reverse. I didn't know it yet, but I would never sleep in that house again. We drove to Dad's office in silence. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and Seth's soft breathing from the back seat. When we walked into the conference room, the quiet felt heavy, like the pressure dropped before a tornado touches down. Dad poured me a glass of water. His hands were steady, but his eyes were dark. Talk to me, Haley. Since when does Heather drive your car while you walk? Since when does Elijah let his mother treat you like hired help? I stared at the water, watching the condensation drip onto the mahogany table. Since always, I whispered, but it got worse when he started paying the rent. Dad frowned. Rent? Elijah told me he was buying that place. He tells everyone that, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my throat. But he tells me he pays $3,500 a month to a property management firm called Blue Horizon Holdings. He holds it over my head every single day. He says he provides the roof, so he makes the rules. He says since I'm just a freelancer and a mom, my contribution is maintenance, keeping his mother happy, giving up my car, making myself small so he can feel big. I opened my laptop back. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore, from adrenaline. Elijah loves being the provider. I continued booting up the computer. He loves signing that check. Makes him feel powerful. It makes him feel like he owns me. And you let him? Dad said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a question. Why? This was the part that was hardest to admit, because I was trained to. I looked at my father and for the first time I admitted the truth about the last 3 years. Heather pulled me aside the day we got married. He told me that strong women end up alone. She said, a good wife is a mirror, Haley. Your job is to reflect him at twice his size. They convinced me that diminishing myself was a form of love. That letting Tiffany take my things, letting Heather criticize my parents, letting Elijah play king of the castle. That was just the rent I had to pay for having a family. I thought I was being supportive. I didn't realize I was being erased. Dad looked like he wanted to punch a wall, but he stayed seated. So he pays this Blue Horizon company. Who are they? Some investment group. I turned the laptop around so he could see the screen. I had logged into the administrative portal for Blue Horizon Holdings. Read the owner's name, Dad. He leaned in. He squinted at the screen. Then he froze. He looked at me, then back. At the screen, then at me again. He breathed. It's you. I am Blue Horizon Holdings. I said the words tasting like cold iron. Grandma left me the inheritance 3 years ago. I bought the house cash. I put it in an LLC because I knew about Heather's gambling debts. I knew if she found out I had money, she'd guilt Elijah into draining me dry. So I hid it. I made myself the landlord. Does he know? No. He thinks he's paying a faceless corporation. Every month he writes a check for $3,500. He throws it on the counter and tells me to make sure it gets mailed. And every month I deposit it into a high yield savings account for Seth. Dad sat back, a slow, terrifying grin spreading across his face. You own the house. You own the roof they're sleeping under. I do. And they just kicked you out of it. They did. I looked at the ledger on the screen. 3 years of payments. 3 years of Elijah puffing his chest out, bragging about providing for his family while unknowingly paying rent to the wife he treated like a servant. He thinks he has the power because he writes the check. I said, closing a laptop. He forgot to check who cashes it. Dad stood up. He picked up his keys. Well, then, Madam Landlord, he said, his voice hard with resolve. I think it's time for an inspection. My phone started vibrating against the mahogany table. It wasn't a call. It was an assault. Text. Messages from Elijah were stacking up on the lock screen, each one more unhinged than the last. Where the hell are you? Mom is crying. She missed her appointment. You are being incredibly selfish. Tiffany is having a panic attack. I didn't touch the phone. I just let it buzz, watching the notifications slide in like evidence in a case file. Then came the voicemail. I put it on speakers so Dad could hear. Haley. Elijah's voice was tight, that specific tone he used when he was trying to sound authoritative, but just sounded petty. You've made your point. You embarrassed my mother. You ruined Tiffany's afternoon. I hope you're happy. But if you aren't back here in 30 minutes with the car, don't bother coming back at all. I'm calling a locksmith. We're changing the locks. You're done here. The line clicked dead. The silence in the conference room was absolute. Dad looked at me, his eyebrows raised. He's going to change the locks on my house, I said, the absurdity of it settling in my chest. He's going to lock me out of the property I bought. Check the accounts. Dad said. His voice had lost the anger. Now it was just cold, hard business. If they think they own the car, and they think they own the house, I guarantee they think they own your money too. I felt a cold prickle of dread at the base of my neck. I opened a new tab on my laptop. I logged into the joint checking account, the one I kept for household groceries and utilities, the one I deposited a small allowance into every month to up the appearance that I was just a struggling freelancer. I stared at the balance, $4.12. It's gone. I whispered. There was $3,000 in there yesterday. It's gone. I clicked on the transaction history. Transfer to H. Miller. Heather. She had drained it an hour ago. Probably the moment Steve blocked the driveway. She saw the ship sinking and grabbed the lifeboats. They deeper. Dad commanded. My hands were trembling as I opened my email. I searched for alert. I searched for credit, and there was a notification from a credit monitoring service I had signed up for years ago and forgot about. It was dated 3 days ago. New. Account opened. Platinum Visa signature. Credit limit $75,000. Current balance $65,400. I clicked the link. I verified my identity with shaking fingers. The screen loaded and the room seemed to tilt. Dad. I choked out. He came around the table to look at the screen. The card had been opened in my name, my social security number, my credit history, but the billing address was listed as Tiffany Miller, and the transaction history, it was a single charge. Bella Sposa Bridal Salon. $65,400. Tiffany's wedding dress. I said, my voice sounding hollow like it was coming from someone else, and the venue deposit. They put it on my credit. They stole your identity. Dad. Corrected. He pointed at the screen, his finger hovering over the transaction. Heather didn't just borrow your car. Haley, she used your social security number to fund her daughter's wedding. That isn't a family dispute. That is a felony. I stared at the numbers. $65,000. They had looked at me, the woman, scrubbing their floors, cooking their meals, walking in the heat, and decided I was nothing more than a resource to be harvested. They didn't just want to erase me. They wanted to consume me. The tears dried up instantly. The fear evaporated. In its place, something cold and sharp clicked into place. It was the feeling of a steel trap snapping shut. They want to change the locks? I said, looking up at my father. That's what he said. I reached for my phone. I didn't call Elijah. I didn't text him back. Let's go, I said, standing up. I need to stop by the police station first. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. The tears were gone. They had evaporated in the heat of that police station, replaced by something colder and much more useful. Dad, I said, my voice steady. Call the locksmith. Tell him we need a full rekey at 804 Pinnacle Drive tonight. Dad didn't ask questions. He just pulled out his phone. I opened my laptop again. I didn't log into my personal email or my social media. I logged into the secure server for Blue Horizon Holdings. I pulled up the lease agreement Elijah had signed 3 years ago, the one he had puffed his chest out while signing, bragging about how he negotiated the terms. I scrolled past the pet deposits and the HOA addendums until I found it. Section 24, paragraph B, immediate termination of tenancy. The landlord reserves the right to terminate this agreement effective immediately if the tenant or any guest of the tenant engages in criminal activity on the premises or utilizes the premises to facilitate a felony, identity theft, credit card fraud, grand theft auto. They hadn't just broken my heart, they had broken the lease. I opened a new document. I typed the header, notice of immediate lease termination. I filled in the details. I cited the police report, number I had just filed for the credit. Card fraud. I didn't sign it Haley. I signed it H. Bennett, property manager. Blue Horizon Holdings. I hit print. The sound of the printer whirring to life was the most satisfying thing I had heard in years. Ready? Dad asked, hanging up. Ready. We drove back to the house, my house. The lights were on. Through the front window, Heather sat on my sofa with a glass of wine. Tiffany laughed at her phone and Elijah paced like he owned the place. They had threatened to lock me out. Now they were drinking in the living room I paid for. Dad shut off the engine and handed me the folder. Want me to knock? No. I pulled the master key from my pocket. Landlords don't knock when there's a crime in progress. I unlocked the door and walked in without hesitation. The room froze. Heather dropped her glass. Red wine spilled across the white rug. What the hell? Elijah shouted. How did you get in? I said nothing. I set the eviction notice on the table. You're being evicted. Effective immediately. He laughed until he read the signature. I am Blue Horizon Holdings, I said, placing the deed beside it. I bought this house 3 years ago. Every rent check you paid came to me. The color drained from his face. Heather tried to protest until I laid out the police report. You stole my identity. $65,000. The police are on their way. She panicked, smashed a vase, tore her blouse, scratched her arm, and called 911, screaming that I was attacking her. Dad calmly pointed to the blinking blue light in the corner. Cameras, audio, and video. You're live. When the police arrived, they watched the footage. 5 minutes later, Heather was in handcuffs. Afterward, I had Elijah removed for trespassing. The locks were changed. The house went quiet, not tense. Just peaceful. Later, Elijah texted, asking to come home and discuss rent. I replied once, your lease has been terminated due to criminal activity. Contact my attorney. Then I blocked him. I stood by the window, my son, asleep down the hall, the deed secured, my future intact. I didn't lose a husband. I lost a parasite.